Welcome to Wild and Exposed, your number one adventure, nature, and outdoor photography podcast. Wild and Exposed is hosted by Mike Mauro, Ron Hayes, Jason Loftus, and Mark Raycroft. Thanks for tuning in.
So we got here to Colorado, and we're trying to find some elk, and we're fortunate enough to get into some pretty good activity. And we just had like one of the most amazing mornings in the elk woods that I've ever personally had. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I don't think anything's compared to a single morning or a shooting opportunity for any kind of wildlife. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, so maybe just go into it a little bit, Kelly. Like, from your perspective, how did that morning unfold, and maybe get into some of the why it was such an amazing morning, and the different situations and that led to that.
Well, we got up and we're in this meadow at first light, kind of waiting for the sun to come up, and got our binoculars out and looked around to kind of see what options we had, and there were very few options. We found one, fairly young bull with a few cows. We knew the light was going to be wrong because the light was coming up behind him, but we just set up and just stood there and waited. Probably there for 30 minutes probably?
Yeah, I'd say so, yeah. 30
minutes or so. The sun started to come up, and then out of the blue, just for no rhyme or reason, most of the cows in the whole meadow, and they were spread out all over the meadow. You could see them, 500 yards one direction and as many yards another direction, and all of a sudden all the cows from these small groups just started coming to where we were. It was slowly, one at a time, they all just came up over the hill right at us, right into this clump of aspen trees, and right behind them was the herd bull with them. Sun came up just about that time. All these bulls gave us great looks as they came over this ridge. We're just sitting there with our prime lenses. We're just waiting for them to come up, and they all gave us good looks. And then all heck broke loose. You get that many bulls together with all these cows, and there were fights all over the place. The sun came up. The sun was right in our face, but one thing I forgot to mention is when we first came into the valley, there was a big layer of fog, and so the humidity was really high, and we were about between 32 and 34 degrees, and so that the steam and the breath coming off these bulls was just, it was coming off their bodies from the heat, and it was coming out of their mouths as they bugled, and it was like, as Jason mentioned, it was like a bunch of dragons breathing, and they all came together and just were fighting like crazy, and we were set up in a really good spot. Everything was backlit, but the looks we were getting was very, very unique. I don't think I've ever had that kind of a look before with the breath and the fog and the strong backlight, and it was really overwhelming because you had so many bulls, and we had 3 or 4 shooting lanes and viewpoints to where we could pick, and stuff was moving in and out like crazy. Light was changing. It was a very dynamic situation, and it was kind of overwhelming, and I wish we had a video, or wish we had an audio of Jason as he was talking to me as this was going on. It was pretty funny. We were burning through cards like crazy and shot that for probably 20-30 minutes. And then as the elk moved out, as the sun moved a little bit, and as the elk moved out of that scene, the fighting was continuing. There was probably, I don't know, every minute there'd be a major battle between 2 big bulls.
Right. You could hear them, could hear them back in the trees,
in the
locking
quakies,
up. Right?
Yeah, just crashing and stuff breaking, and it was just amazing. You'd have probably had a dozen bulls in there at the same time, and they're all screaming at each other and bugling, and then after we just slowly moved around to the other side where the sun was at our back, and over the course of the next hour and a half, all these bulls slowly came out of the timber right into us with the cows that they had kind of been fighting for, and we probably shot till 10:30, got a little cloud cover, and we could have had a portion of that and been tickled with this trip, but to have that morning was, and that wasn't our only experience. We had some other good opportunities too, but as far as one epic opportunity, I don't know I've ever experienced anything like that.
Yeah, no, I think you hit the nail on the head with to me, what was so amazing about it was just the variety that we had all in one scenario, in one setting. And, we had just talked the night before, like one of the fun things about coming this, a little bit later in the rut, towards the tail of the end of the rut, is the chance for some snow or some cooler weather, some of that backlit breath type stuff, right? And we sat and talked about it'd be kind of cool. Hopefully we get some breath, but you just got to have the right conditions come together for it to really pan out. And then for that to all unfold the way it did was just incredible. I mean, you couldn't have asked. I personally never experienced that type of situation where it was just so perfect with the dark background, the perfect spot where the elk were, with all the steam and the breath going off, and the perfect backlight. It wasn't too harsh. It was just perfect. And on that, you're right. I just couldn't shut up. And the other thing I was surprised about too is there was other photographers around, and it really was only myself and Kelly and one other person that was kind of in the area that stayed and kind of took advantage of those conditions, And I just as a side note, I mean, to me, it's when you see something like that unfolding in the field, in my opinion, you're best to just forget about the other stuff that you can get every day, the normal lighting conditions, and take advantage of every single second you can of those very unique type of lighting situations. And we had probably every single bull. There was probably 8 bulls in there that were all really nice bulls, and every one of them came into that little window and gave us, really unique looks of that, unique lighting situation with the what I call dragon breath, right? Fire-breathing dragons were amongst us, but
yeah, it was pretty cool, and not just from a photography standpoint. I mean, it was at first you're almost tempted to just look above your viewfinder and just watch the whole thing, because I'm sure there's little tidbits of things that were going on that we missed because we were in our viewfinders and trying to find the scene we wanted to capture. But it was pretty cool. And I don't care if it wasn't, not from just a photographer standpoint, but I've spent a lifetime in the outdoors doing all kinds of activities, and I've never seen anything as intense as that.
Right.
With that kind of wildlife all together.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I'm glad you said that, because there was a point where right before we left to get a different angle and get some different lighting, I remember we kind of did just kind of sit there and just enjoy it for a minute, and just couldn't believe we had that experience, and kind of thought we might have missed the opportunities on the other side of the quakes where the light was different. And then when we went over there and just bulls coming out of the shadows, and the lighting was just so perfect that you were just getting great colors, and the aspens in the background, which is kind of hard to come by.
The colors are phenomenal over here right now.
Oh, it's amazing.
It really helped out on a lot of the background stuff we were looking for.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, one of those mornings for the record books, and I can honestly say it's probably the best morning or best day, to be honest. And we didn't really end up having much else happen that day, but the best day of photography in the elk woods, and not just photography, like Kelly said, just the best kind of experience in the elk woods with all the stuff that was going on, how intense it was. So I feel pretty fortunate to be able to have those kind of experiences for sure. And we actually talked about that a little bit too, as far as I really wish people could get out and have those experiences and see the elk, not just elk, but a lot of different animals. But the elk rut is just such a unique thing, and everybody that's listening to the show knows that it's one of my favorite. It is probably my favorite time of the year and favorite thing to photograph because of those kind of situations that we come across.
You've been listening to the Wild and Exposed podcast. If you haven't yet, please give us a rating and a review. And make sure you're subscribed so that you'll get every episode we produce as soon as we drop it. And as always, thanks for tuning in.
We're gonna make it someday. Nothing's gonna get in our way. We will be the biggest band in town. Round and round the world we'll go.